Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Peter Dahlgren, and I'm got a lot of really great messages here lately, and I just want to come in here while we're taking a little bit of a break before I go in there and start spreading some bondo and start fixing up some of my screw ups. There's a lot of really good questions about fiberglassing that I want to answer right now, and just kind of take this as a deal. I'm obviously not in the shop. And I think one of the things is I've had a lot of really great, uh, wonderful compliments and all that. And thank you all so much for all of them. But I think I want to go through and kind of explain a little bit about the building and a lot of great things that are about this airplane and these kits. But I also want to give you guys some cautionaries. And I know I do these kind of rambling when I'm working and doing that. And again, all my videos now are live. And the reason for it is because I'm catching myself making some pretty simple mistakes that a lot of people are doing, and maybe I don't make myself so clear sometimes. I have a tendency to kind of wander when I'm working on things, thinking and doing things at the same time. And it's because I'm a mad scientist when I'm down there. And one of the things is that Maguro made the canopy frames for these airplanes, and it's for the mirrors, and it's awesome. I mean, it's some of the really cool work. It's some of the best I've seen as far as making things look a little bit on the weathered and beat up side. And yeah, I had a lot of questions about the sliding canopy and where I got my measurements from. And I'm waiting for something to show up before I go and I get that hatch done. A lot of guys have asked about my hatch, and it's not really, it's kind of a goofy thing to go through with it because of what I did. I kind of went through and looked at a bunch of other people's designs, and I decided that I would take some maple and make the runners for that. And I'm just simply going to glass through some plywood and actually make that piece that actually slides in it actually work, and it's going to get cut down. Now, what I'm doing, I ordered an extra set of hinges, and I ordered an extra set of all the G10 hinges. And I have plenty. And basically, what I got them is because those are going to be my hinges for my front landing gear doors. And I'm going to use them for mounts for my lineal servos that I will be using to make the canopy slide. And I took a huge gamble on that when I did that. And I really didn't know what the hell was going on when I did it, and I got lucky. So I am going to be using iFly Achilles cockpit kit. And the reason I'm doing it is because I want to build it myself. There's a few other things that I will incorporate into that's going to make it stand out. I'm going to put a lot of wires and a lot of little things like that. I'm going to put the heat tubes through it with things because I love the detailing. The building of the jet is straightforward. And so the details to make it even just that much more special take some time, and they take a lot of time. Guys, these mirror sets that I use for detail sets simplify it. And if you're not friends with me on Facebook, feel free. I'll accept anybody that's a flying enthusiast and all this. And you can go back and you can look through pictures of airplanes I've done. Now, there are a lot of different ideas on a lot of things that I'm kind of working to think of, and I'll explain them as we go. But there's also a huge question that's been about the glassing method I use. and I use epoxy. And the reason I use it is because I've never had a failure with it ever in my entire life. I've built a lot of airplanes, a lot of boats, especially boats. And that stuff doesn't let go. If you thin it down and you put it, if you thin it down, you're going to use 50-50 on your mix. It's actually, let me reiterate what I actually do. On my resin, it's usually 50 to 52% resin, which is your clear, and then your dark part, I don't ever do it 50-50. I do it about usually a 49 to 51 in favor of the resin. And then I'll float the hardener on the top, and that's only going to be about 48%. And the reason I do it is because it takes a long time for this stuff to set up, especially in this weather. It's been actually cool. And it'll take it 8 hours for it to cure up before it's ready for the next coat. And you want to be ready. You don't want this stuff to dry completely out. And you want it to where you can touch it, but not have any come off on your finger. Now, putting in the alcohol in it, you're going to use it. Say if you have this much resin, you're going to put that much or less. It's whatever works the best for you. I like to go a 50-50 mix. And so if I got 2 parts of epoxy, meaning 1 part hardener, 1 part resin, I will put literally the 2 parts, so of what those are. So if you have 100% of your resin, you want to measure, and next to it, you put that much alcohol in it. It makes it a little bit thicker than water, but it's not, it won't run off of there so much. It will run like crazy. I'm telling you right now, it's going to do it. But I buy my brushes. They're cheap 2-inch brushes. I get them at Harbor Freight. And I get 36 in a box for about $7 or $8. I don't think they're even that much. It depends. You can get them cheap. And they're usually one of those items when you see me buy them, if you're going to know you're going to be doing a lot of glass work. And I use them for everything. And it's one of those deals where you just want to make sure that you have all the materials. You want to make sure you have tape on hand. Denatured alcohol, as long as it's denatured, any brand will work. Sunnyside, Clean Strip, it's usually dirt cheap. It doesn't cost that much. And I get my I get my cloth through Zeroli Plans, and the reason I like to get his is because that stuff's strong. I show in one video, you got to really push to get your thumb through it. It's tough. But there is a catch-22 to all of this, and it's probably something I never said. And if I did, maybe I didn't make it very clear. Laminating this stuff for strength it's not going to work, and it's just not going to do it with a finishing resin, because the stuff that's not a structural component. All we're doing is surfacing that for primer. And I used 3 coats of it. And let me just back up just for a second, because I think one of the big things is guys think, man, that's going to be just strong as hell with all that glass on there. Guys, it's a wood structure. You can't make it anything but a wood structure. And it's one that they still build airplanes with this stuff every day. And you know what? It's strong. And it does. It won't dent. It won't do anything. It won't go crazy on you. But all we're doing is building a foundation for paint and details. That being said, yeah, it will give it some strength. But as I've said to all of you, don't oversand your project, because that fiberglass is not going to it's not going to replace any of the strength from the wood. And I think one of the big things that a lot of guys are kind of thinking, well, we can put some carbon fiber in around the spars and all this. It's no need on the Maersk jets. There's absolutely no need for it. This is the strongest airframe I've ever built, and it's amazing. And you're going to see this for yourself when you build it. And if you're building it, it's one of the most amazingly strong. There's no chance that thing's going to blow up in the air. It's just not going to. It's if you built your airframe right and you use proper adhesives, and that's one thing that one guy told me. He says, "Well, if I use kicker and thick CA, will that work better? Because I want to get this done." Don't do it. For one thing, CA on plywood has got no business being on there. And balsa, yes, anywhere you can go with balsa, you bet you use all the CA you want. And I do use it. But guys, I've only used one bottle in this whole build. And I only got a few pieces to sheet. And I'll do those and I'll do them live. I still got tanks to do. And the reason I haven't done them is because and the reason I'm going kind of out of context and not glassing everything at the same time, and I still got a lot of building and stuff to do on the wings and everything. The reason I'm not doing it is because we've been so wet here. And the reason that the alcohol is so important, especially if you're in a very humid area and all that, is because it's going to pull that water out of your wood. It's going to pull everything out. And guys, with this, it penetrates almost all the way through that. It's amazing. And you want it to do that. But what the 1 ounce cloth is the maximum that you want to go on any of your airplanes. And the reason for it is because it's not there for strength. It is strong. It does add a little bit. There's no getting around that. It will. But what it is that balsa is a hardwood. It's very, very, very porous. So the one thing I want to explain about it is that if you just put resin on it and sand it off, within a year or two, what's going to happen is those fibers are going to split apart. And that 1 ounce cloth holds that all together. And so, happy birthday, Christina. Anyway, I think one of the big things is that one of the things, yeah, my cousin just messaged me while we were here. Very cool. And I think one of the biggest things that I want everybody to completely and okay, so the left side went totally unhinged. Okay, I'm getting messages like crazy here. One of the things is that I just want to make sure that everybody understands that cloth is not going to make it bulletproof. It'll be beautiful when you're done. But if you're relying on that cloth for strength, you built your airplane wrong. And it's like I said, it's wood structure. It's all it's ever going to be. And one thing that I want you guys to understand, and this one thing that I showed in a video, but I want to make sure that you guys understand and know there's one important step before you do your glassing, and it's called casing. And this is something that I do. Not everybody will. It is not a necessary step, and you're not going to screw your airplane by not doing it. But one thing that I will tell you is it is extremely, and for me and what I do, is very important. And what I do is I'll get a spray bottle, and you're going to put about a cup of ammonia in it, straight up ammonia. Get it in any grocery store, anywhere you want, and you fill it full of hot water, and get it as hot as you can. I've seen guys boil it. Don't have to get that much. But if you got it, just where it's hot, straight hot tap water, mix it up. What you want to do is you want to go on all your parts before you do your final sanding before glass, and you want to just soak that thing. I mean, let it run off. Soak that fuselage down. It's going to do two things. It's going to raise the grain. It's going to open all that wood up. And it's going to also relax it. So any part that is under any kind of pressure and all this stuff like that, what it does is it lets it conform. It might even dip. It might even raise up a little bit, but don't let that scare you. And then you just spray it down, walk away from it, come back the next day, and you're going to see that your fuselage is really rough. You want to go with 220 dry. Use good sandpaper and use it on a foam block or by your hand and just go over it, touch it up. And then just before you're ready to glass, you wipe it down with the denatured alcohol. You won't believe the amount of crap that will come off of it. Once your wood is clean and everything is relaxed, you're going to notice, you're going to see every spot that you might have misglued. You can go back, and once that dries, you can go and fix it. Also, guys, dents. If you get a dent in your wood, don't sand it out. Don't fill it. This is also what that flooding that thing and getting it good and wet will do. It'll raise all those dents right back out. It'll close every one of the pinholes. It does it. I mean, it makes that wood relax. It goes right back into its natural state, and when it dries, it's just like it was when it was brand new. Don't be afraid of dents. And if you do get one, spray it with that ammonia and water. It'll pop right out. If you get a scratch in it, don't sand it, spray it with water, and then after it's dried back up there, then you can go back and touch it. One thing I do is that I actually go through anything that I see that is going to be crazy. I'll knock it down with 80 grit and get as much of a basic shape as I want. But one thing is I'm only using 3/32 thick wood for the sheeting. You can go 1/8. I don't. It's just adding up. You're going to lose a lot of that anyway. And so if you are reeling, go back and look at the videos about my wet forming, go back and look at my videos about my sanding and basic shaping. And you'll see I use a lot of Bondo, and I do it first. And that's another question that was asked. How does this epoxy react to the Bondo? Well, Bondo is just as porous as that wood is, and it is designed to take a top coat. It is, the Bondo is not something that you have to primer it. Otherwise it'll pinhole and it'll draw and it'll do the weirdest things you ever seen. It makes it the perfect filler for balsa because it's just as porous, and it attacks it. And it's like epoxy. Once you put it on the wood, there's no chance of it coming off. It does not come off. And again, when you're using Bondo, you want to not put a lot of hardener in it. You just want to change the color of it, let it cure slow, because that balsa will absorb it. And that epoxy will damn near go all the way through it. And that's another reason why I like using alcohol, because it will actually do that. And doesn't come off. It will not come off. And it'll look a little bit more shiny when you put it over that. But once you put your second coat on, and again, guys, I will go over it after, if it's dry enough, I will go over and actually touch up any of the seams just very, very, very lightly. And this is another thing that you guys don't want to be doing, is sanding your weave. Don't do it. I mean, if you can get away with not doing it, knock your big boogers off of it, but don't block it out. You'll ruin it. And that's another thing. Don't sand it on the second coat, very lightly, just to take any of the debris off of it. But every time you put a coat on that resin, you want to wipe it off with denatured alcohol. The reason why for that is because it cleans it. And that alcohol is what you use to thin it. So it'll actually soften it back up just a hair. It takes that little bit of that waxy feeling off of it, and it softens it up just a hair. and they'll give you right where that perfect thing is. And again, I mix all 3 coats exactly the same. And the reason for it is because when you do it, it flows out so nice. And before primer, I will wet sand it with 220 grit wet and dry paper with a little bit of Dawn dish soap in it. And that just keeps the paper clean, keeps it from clogging up. And once I'm satisfied with the way it looks, I will wipe it completely clean again with denatured alcohol. I'll let it set a little bit, let it do its thing. You just want to make sure you get all the dust off of it. And then I use Spray Max 2K primer, high build. Don't use anything but a high build. This stuff sprays on thick. The first coat you put on, you're just about going to lose almost all of it, and you're going to see every low and high spot. And I'm going to show you this on the next series of videos on this for finishing. But I like using the 2K. It's about $22 a can. And the reason for the epoxy primer is because, again, it's an epoxy. And it does not shrink. When it's there, it's there. Now, a lot of guys have asked me about it and asked me about Duplicolor. Nothing wrong with it. But I would, however, when you spray it on, it takes a lot of material. And the one thing is, in order to get it so you can actually do your blocking and get the fuselage or whatever you're doing straight, you're going to have to keep reapplying it. And I like it because it dries fast, but it also will shrink. One thing don't do, I do not do ever, is put lacquer primer. Lacquer is it will shrink over time, and you'll see every sand scratch and everything there is in it. It doesn't, and it's got a real bad reaction to any of the epoxies. If you put it on, it'll wrinkle up, it'll screw up on you so bad, and you got to seal it. And then you are adding a tremendous amount of weight. And any of these catalyzed primers that I'll be using, yeah, they smell bad, but when they're done, oh my God, you cannot believe the difference in the quality of it. And guys, again, it will look like a piece of steel, and it'll be hard. It will sand so amazing. It'll be great. And I prime mine 2 times before I do panel lines. Now, the Duplicolor is really good. And this is a big question that I was just commenting on, and a lot of guys use it. And the one thing is, it's got a drawback. And that is it does not bond. If you're going to be doing some layups for like landing gear doors and panels, like I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be taking a couple molds off where the landing gear doors go in the center of the fuselage for the main gear doors and the nose gear. Plus I'm putting lights in this thing. So I need those panels removable, and I'm not going to bury them in there. And so I'm going to be laying up with a different material, some fiberglass, and it'll be epoxy. And then I'll laminate a coat, right? A 3-coat deal with, just like I did with everything else to make it look right, and get a 3/32 thick fiberglass panel for my landing gear doors and all that. And that'll make it serviceable and make it so I can remove the gear if I ever need to, and this and that. And these are all things coming. And that means a lot of parts are on order, and that means a lot of things are coming on the horizon. And also a big question is about the landing gear and the rotating gear. Well, got a guy overseas in Europe that is actually doing just that very thing right now. And it could be made available And it could be a thing that will be really good, and it'll actually show you what we did to make quarter scale gear for this airplane. And again, this is all viewers, and these are all these things that are going to be so amazing. And once it's here, it is being made. Once it's here, I will show you everything that we're doing. And it's like I said, everything that I develop for the Mearsif 86 or any airplane that I build, I'll make them readily available for all of you, because my gear will rotate flat. You know, it will be just like the real airplane. It's going to look great. So I got pictures of it yesterday of it on the milling machine, and wow, really, really cool stuff coming on the horizons. And we will be talking a lot about the selection of gear once we get it here, because I think a lot of guys have kind of put two and two together. I am actually going to go for blood on this. I am going to compete with it, and the details and all that are just getting to where they're just around the corner. So actually, once we do the modification to the tail to make that right, and I get that all glass, I'll start running wires and electronics and stuff like that in the jet. Here's another question that was asked, and very, very good question that was done. Why did I not cut my gear? Why did I not fit these before I sheeted everything? That is probably one of the best questions that I've ever heard. It commands a straight answer and an explanation. The reason I don't do it in the wings, but in the fuselage, those of you that are building the F-86, everything is accessible. And if you do the two-piece, like I'm doing, a lot of you are not. A lot of you don't need to. And that's fine. But room-wise and getting in and out of places, it made more sense for me to do the two-piece. But I don't need my turbine right now, and I wouldn't put it in there and be doing all this work. Turbine's a lot of money, and the tailpipe, I'll put it in when I get the turbine in there after it's glass and actually painted. I will have everything pretty much done. The landing gear, yes, I'll be doing that soon, but the one thing is, by doing 2K clear, I'll be able to pop my molds off everything done. I can cut those out larger than they need to be, and then I can still reach underneath it and put plywood and hidden screws and T-nuts in there to hold everything nice. And I want to incorporate that. But the main thing I want to tell you, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to lay panel lines. I'm actually going to lay the landing gear doors out so they're actually the right size. And then when I get that, I'll put that, I will mold over that. And those panel lines are going to give me the dimensions, the actual scale dimensions. And they're going to be correct. And then I know exactly where the lights are going to be and everything else. And I can make those panels so I can get it. And again, my spotlights that I'm using are the retractables from iFly Chili's. They're not cheap. But these are things I'm doing to make the airplane as beautiful as I possibly can. I'm using a 1/32 scale model. I ordered one before I start putting panel lines. I'm going to take references off of that actual airplane. And basically, you can do it on 1/72 scale. I like 1/32 because I'm going to be able to go through and measure every single line off of that plastic model. And I'm also going to be able to look at things and take measurements. there is a formula for finding panel lines. And it's actually, this is how I do it. And I will find it because now Neil Magura made the canopy frame for mine, and he did it. You doing the same thing, and it's beautiful. And the panel lines are correct on it. I will draw the first line in front of the cockpit, and that's where I'm going to come up. And that's why I haven't put any guns in it or anything like that yet, because I really need to get a pencil and go through. And the formula is simple. If you're doing 72nd, you take 72, and you're going to go to millimeters, which is kind of tricky for us Americans here in the United States because we don't use the metric system. And we're starting to learn quite a bit about it here because everybody else does it and we don't. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to take 32, we'll divide that by, and we will take it and divide it up. Say if you got a 10 millimeter line, you're going to times that by 1/4. You're going to find your quarter scale, which is 0.25. You're going to see that it's going to become that little tiny line that's this big becomes that big, becomes 250 millimeters. And that'll give you the lines that you need. So you need to measure these off of the model because they're right. And that'll give you the deal. So yeah, we're going to build a plastic model and we're going to get all these details and we're going to look at things in actual regular drawings. And if you don't want to do a model, you can just go and look for F86 blueprints, get them in 72nd scale. And again, you're going to be doing 22 times 0.25. That'll give you all your dimensions and they'll be right. And you can also measure about what your size of your gun ports are and everything else. You'll get all those fine details. I use 1/64 chart pack tape, but one thing I did notice after going to a museum, and I did actually go and do a video on it. If you can go and look at a real airplane, it really will help you because it will actually go and it'll give you an idea of what they've done with it. Because if you look at a real F86, oh yeah, there's a shitload of rivets. There's a lot of things, but they're not really all that visible. So we're not going to be, and the reason I do that is because I want to make those as small as possible. So I'm going to be using 64 chart pack tape. And again, you want the gloss. Don't use the flat. That's a paper, man, you'll never get it out. It cracks. It's embarrassing. Looks beautiful. And there are some raised panel lines that we're going to be doing, and that'll be done with a Bondo filler. It's a spot putty. You can use the red if you want to. I prefer catalyzed stuff. I know it's going to dry and be cured and have to be able to go in and sand it. And then again, before we start the rivets, I already have them. I got them when I got the jet. There was a lot of things going. And if you really want to go and really be a stickler, which I will be, because that's when the wizardry just really starts to pop, is coming out and actually looking at these details. And it makes a huge difference. It is really amazing to see the accomplishment when it's done. And that leads us to another question here, is how did I meet up with Mir Cersei? Well, when I was building my Spitfire here, there was a lot of questions. I wanted to do panel lines. I was very green at it. And I ran across a guy named Don Rice that did a bunch of videos on a P-47 and also was doing a lot of incredible stuff on a Corsair. And he was doing a lot of different videos. And I would invite you to go look him up on YouTube, and his name is Don Rice. And he used mirror sets on his P-47, and I saw that and went, oh my God, that is incredible. So I looked him up and I found him, and Mears and Mears Turzak and I started talking, and it became a really good deal. And then I moved to Cleon for a while, and we had an unfortunate event in the shop. And what had happened was I was getting ready to take the Spitfire to Top Gun. I started working on it. It was cold, and I hired an electrician to come out and put in a couple cadet heaters, and the breaker failed, and the limiter switches failed on the heaters, and we lost the shot along with the airplane and everything in it. So basically, unfortunately, 2 years worth of work went down the tubes, and I was pretty upset about that. And it happened just as I was getting ready to glass the tops of the wings. And that was an incredibly beautiful airplane. It got a lot of world exposure, and there's still pictures of it on Facebook if you guys want to look at it. And it was also the first time I ever did a cockpit kit, and it was a Zeroli, and it was beautiful. And unfortunately, never got a chance to fly it. So, anyway, that being said, I was so impressed with mere sets that I got it together, had a little bit of financial difficulty, lost an engine in a vehicle and all that. I was going to Top Gun, but we didn't make it. So anyway, I had a bunch of other people that kind of jumped in. This is one of the things that really sold me on being a scale modeler, was there's no better camaraderie than there's ever been in this hobby than there is with these people. Mears brought this F-86 that we're building. He brought it in his luggage from Serbia. And when he left, it had to be left in Lakeland, Florida. And a gentleman named Scott Prosson shipped it over here. I paid for the jet. We got everything going and everything else. And here it is. I mean, now here we are a year later, and we're finally glassing. And I can think of no better honor than to go with all of you guys is to finish and fly this jet at Top Gun. Whether it places to me is not important, but the one thing I will say is that by going down there with this jet next year, I am going to make sure that everybody that's been involved with this gets credit where it's due, because there's been a lot of wonderful people all over the world, 15 countries that have been involved with this build. Manira, gosh, I can't pronounce his name. Manir, we call him Manu Jets, but anyway, he's the one that built the canopy frame. Mears does this. Damiano is the designer. It's got almost 500 flights on his F-86, which is number one. Amazing. Very tough airplane. And so just to honor all these people to build it and make it look as good as it possibly can, and actually get in and actually make it a competitor, and see it at Top Gun, whether it places or not, it will be there. And it's going to get the attention of some of the top builders in the world. And that's what we're doing. And funny enough, a lot of them are watching me, and I'm sure I made a few of them laugh because I do things that are different. And another thing, here's the last question for this episode, guys. And I think one of the big things is I want everybody to understand, you don't need a huge shop to build this airplane. And I've been building it in our rec room, and now I've moved it again. And I have it in I've got it in a larger place, because we're not painting an airplane inside the house. I value my marriage too much. And that was the one thing that did get me. Yeah, happy wife, happy life. Very true. And the thing is that it's going to be in a situation where very soon it's going to get very, very messy. A lot of guys laminate their airplanes outside. Well, and where we're at, we can't do that. And because the weather is known to change here so much, it's not even funny. But getting my game face on is why I've actually done it. And yes, we're going to be going over a few things. But my original series was to show that you don't need a big shop to build this airplane. And you just make it work. You don't need a lot of tools. A lot of things happen, but I wanted to show the precision of this kit and just how well it actually in fact is. I used a cordless drill. No Dremel tool yet. I will. But I built this airplane completely with a couple sanding blocks, some squeegees, and a lot of tape, a lot of clamps. Very minimal. Razor saws, absolutely. X-Acto knives, yes. But I did not build this airplane in a huge shop. It helps to have one, but you don't need it. And I built this as crude, and I did the videos as crude as I possibly could, just to show that any average smoke can build these airplanes. And it doesn't matter which one you do, you can do it as long as you take your time and you actually know how to make things work for yourself. It's not a major thing in rocket science. But in closing of this video, there's a few of you that are building this airplane that never built anything else and you're not having any issues. And that's what my series is about. And I think one of the biggest things here is that there's some amazing people out there. And I've said this a million times, no matter what I've done in any form of RC, your imagination is the only limitation that you got. And I'm very happy with a lot of the comments that have inspired people to buy these jets and this, but I would like to invite you guys to think of a few other things you might want to consider first. And I've said this because I know Jerry Bates, I know Nick Zeroli. I've built both their airplanes, several of them. I love their kits. You can buy them lasered or you can cut them yourself and do this, but there's also top flight. And a lot of guys may or may not like that. They're not the scaleless, but you got to learn how these airplanes are built. If you go top flight and build a Corsair or a P-47 or a Mustang, you're going to be a leg up when you get on this airplane. Even though it's precision and it builds amazingly, there's a lot of scratch building to do. And by going and learning a couple top flights, not only that, they make wonderful trainers. And they will prepare you for the next step, which is warbirds or whatever you want to do. But you build a Jerry Bates or you build a Nick Zeroli plans airplane, they're foolproof. They fly fanatically. They're awesome and in any way, shape, or form. But they will also hone your skills in learning how to scratch build. You're going to learn what to beef up, what you don't need to, this and that. You make the mistakes on something, you're gone, because when you get into a Mears airplane or anything like that, this big, all bets are off. And you're going to be relying upon those skills to actually get out there and actually make parts. You're going to know what will work. You're going to know what is going to need to be done. and it just becomes second knowledge to you. I've been building for over 40 years, and I think a lot of guys might question that sometimes, and I do too, but I actually, in fact, have. I started out building rubber powered airplanes, the Gulos, and I built lots of top flights. I did a lot of control lines, a lot of Goldberg models. I did a lot of Cubs. I love those airplanes, and they're fun. I did a couple Stearmans. I did Zerle Stearman. I built the P-47. I built the Spitfire, of course, and I built Top Flight Corsair, which was an actual really cool airplane. I did a lot of new things to that. I ruined it. But anyway, that's the way it goes. And then I took a break from airplanes, went into helicopters for a while, and decided that was way too much money. And then I did RC cars, and I started airbrushing and doing other things just to prepare myself for newer things. And I'm glad I did all of them. And common knowledge is if a poodle could have been radio controlled, I'd have had one. I've done just about everything. But all my building experiences come from doing just a little bit of everything. Plywood, working, and all that stuff. I've learned that by doing RC boats. And it's no secret, yes, I build all District 9's championship boats. I don't do them anymore, and mainly because Kizak's not racing anymore. Otherwise, I did all the paint jobs. I did all the building and a lot of different things on those. So it's fun. And as for a couple of questions on a couple airplanes that are on my timeline, and I just want to clear the air on this, is I did not build those airplanes. And the Sea Fury that you're looking at, the silver one, those pictures were sent to me quite a few years ago now, about 4 or 5 years ago. And that is a Top Gun airplane. And no, I did not build it. I did not paint it. Those pictures were sent to me to have another one done like it, but we couldn't find documentation on it. And basically, that one, along with a few others, there have been quite a few of reference pictures that people have sent me when I was still painting planes and stuff like that wanted those paint jobs. And it became a can of worms. And I had a mad stepson that basically took him up there and posted him in a couple of the Warbird people's thing. And I wound up getting getting some messages from the owners of the airplane saying, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" You know, and I was in shock. What? Somebody sent me those pictures for a paint job on that. Shock. What? Somebody sent me those pictures for a paint job on that. And I couldn't find the documentation to do them on a Mustang. One of them was actually a Cuban Air Force Sea Fury that was a contender in Top Gun. So, yeah. No, I did not do those. Never did. And the pictures are there, and I have actually deleted them. But anyway, it's just there were some things that were sent to me in Messenger, and my phone keeps resaving them, and that's fine. And so the only airplanes that I did that have ever been posted, not recently and this and that, there's a lot of boats, a lot of cars, a lot of other things that I did, in fact, paint, guitars, and a lot of other things, but never did any Top Gun airplanes. So there's been a few questions on that. I just wanted to clear the air on that my former stepson, because I wouldn't pay for his college, because, well, he retaliated on me by doing that, and that was it. So, other than that, let's get back to building. Let's get inspired to build something. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. And like I said, you can friend me on Facebook. I'll answer any questions. Happy to. You can call me on the phone if you want to, too. And I have no problem with any of that. And it's like I said, there's 49 of you in 15 different countries that are building this airplane and following along. And I appreciate every one of them and all of you. And I've gotten a lot of really great advice. And so I'm not a master builder. I never have been. But I'm a guy that just loves this stuff and enjoys it. And I hope you do too. I'll see you in the funny page.